Hey, soldiers, as if you didn't have enough to deal with, inflation is about to spike again. Now, you're not going to hear this on MSNBC, you're not going to hear this on Fox, but we are going to go over it. Why? Because you need to be prepared. Again, this channel is not about doom and gloom, it's about preparedness. And in order to be prepared, you need the information. It's just as simple as that. You don't need spin. So today we're going to talk about why inflation is primed to increase. Mind you, that's happening even in an era where we see rising interest rates as well. So we've got that and the specter of higher taxation down the road here, a piece in 2025, January 2025, we got the expiration of the Trump tax cut. So let's talk about it. Let's first go over why you're being misled. Okay, it's important to understand why that's happening. Next, let's look at why inflation is primed to increase, okay? Then we're going to take a look at how you can preserve the value of your wealth. You need to have that top of mind because inflation is an erosion of your wealth. You need to come to the table with more dollars just to purchase the same amount or even less stuff if we factor in stagflation. So why are you being misled? Well, because they want you to continue spending. That's why. This is a consumer economy. And if you knew and absorbed the truth about what's going on, and by you, I mean the masses, I know the soldiers of finance audience is head and shoulders above 90% or more of the populace and understanding what's going on out here. So they want you to stay in the game, to keep spending, to keep racking up credit card debt. That's the only way they can continue to perpetuate the myth. Now, most of America will continue to do just that, all right? But our audience is a lot smarter. And again, that third item we're going to talk about, and I need you to stay tuned, and I need you to share this one, okay? Let's try to wake some people up. That third item we're going to talk about is exactly what you need to be considering to preserve the value of your wealth. Now, let's look at some reasons why we're going to see an increase in inflation. Now, what is inflation? It's basically too many dollars chasing too many goods. So the old law of supply and demand kicks in. You got a lot of people that want this one thing. So the price of it is going to necessarily increase. Prices have been rising dramatically here in America over the past few years, with the cost of necessities like food increasing by 25 to 50%. Not to mention healthcare. Healthcare is, up to like in the 70% range for some healthcare services. Food, healthcare, these are things you can't do without, right? Think about that for a moment. It now costs us 25 to 50% more per year to live than it did before 2020. And it's not over by a long shot. Household costs are still climbing. Remember, we did the video where we showed you, the media came out and crowed about, oh, look, inflation's down. No, the rate of inflationary increase has slowed, but it's still going up. So, for example, this is one, again, most of America doesn't realize. If I'm going 80 miles per hour down the highway, okay, I'm moving forward down I-95, and then I slow down. Uh-oh, I see a cop car over there on the shoulder. Let me just take my foot off the pedal. Now I'm going 60 miles per hour in the same direction. I haven't put the car in reverse. I'm still moving forward, just at a reduced rate of speed. All right, this is what's happening when they're reporting these inflation numbers that are still positives. All right, you're still moving forward, yet they report it like we have, somehow miraculously Bidenomics has saved us and we're going in the opposite direction. Prices are falling. That's not true. All right, household costs are still climbing, and since inflation is cumulative, we will likely never be rid of the increases that are already in place. That's right. You're never going to see prices go down. I talked about the dog biscuits that I buy for my beagle. They're never going back to their pre-2020 price. and they've decreased the size of the biscuit. So we're never going to see a reversal on that. But if that's the reality, then, how can we explain this era that we're in where it seems like inflation is moderating? The main reason has been the central bank pumping up interest rates. So they're making money more expensive, all right? So credit is tightening, in some quarters. People are finding that it's harder to get credit, or it's just flat out more expensive, like a home mortgage or a car loan, for example. The more expensive debt becomes, the more the economy slows down. That said, the Fed has remained hawkish for a reason. They know that inflation is not going away, and they know this because they can look back in history and see what Paul Volcker did in the 1980s. He was the Fed chair, and how aggressively he had to raise rates in order to get the economy to really slow down, kicked it into a recession. They, the Fed and Treasury, need help if they're going to convince the public that inflation is no longer a problem. And they're out there trying to do that, but we're not going to let them. We're going to tell the truth here. Enter Biden's scheme. Okay, this is one way they're trying to get a handle on this and do some sleight of hand. Enter Biden's scheme of dumping America's strategic oil reserves on the market as a means to artificially bring down the consumer price index, inflation. So that's been in the news for years. Ever since Biden came into office, he's been drawing down our strategic reserves. It's supposed to be, we were told that's supposed to be for our military. If they needed, a supply that they had to rely on, just in case the Middle East said, screw you, America. And, we don't do anything crazy over here, like actually drill for the oil that's under our land. We farm that out to black and brown people. Okay, and then talk about how much we care about the environment. So, that's where we are. He's getting more and more of that strategic petroleum reserve oil onto the market, thereby moderating the prices. Because, look, the Saudis have come out a couple of times and said, we're going to cut output. And what happens when you cut output? It raises the price. So that's Biden's brainchild, right? And that definitely has a shelf life in terms of how long you can do that. Energy prices affect almost all other aspects of the CPI index. Correct. You have to ship food to the store, ship clothing to the store, ship gasoline to the gas station. Okay. Everything moves with some derivative of oil, be it a freight train, a cargo ship, a semi-truck. All right, a cargo plane, all right, all using oil. So it's costing more to get that stuff to market if oil is more expensive. The problem is that what Biden is doing is a short-term fraud. Biden has run out of reserves to dilute the market, and the cost of refilling them is going to be exponentially higher, right? Because oil costs more now than it did then. This is why you now see gas prices rising again, and they will probably keep rising through the rest of 2023. On top of this, there are also geopolitical factors to consider. The White House has earmarked over $100 billion in aid to Ukraine, which is a proxy war. And it's a good way, though, to recirculate our fiat dollars overseas as a means to reduce monetary inflation here at home. But it's not going to be enough unless the war expands considerably, which I hope it doesn't do. But, this is America. Who knows? We might see to it that it does. Then there's a problem of export distributions. For example, Russia is now officially and aggressively shutting down Ukraine's wheat and grain exports, which is going to cause another price spike in wheat and all foods that use wheat. India just shut down major exports of rice to protect their domestic supply, meaning rice is going to rocket in price. And there's an overall trend of foreign creditors quietly dumping the US dollar as the world reserve currency. We've been all through that and we continue to cover it. All those dollars will eventually make their way back to the US, meaning an even larger money supply circulating domestically, with higher inflation as a result. All right, so what is the real inflation number out there? Of course, the government in their, mathematical wizardry is telling us that it's somewhere in the neighborhood 3 to 4%. But if we look at the way in which inflation has historically been calculated before all of the, trickery that became involved, we're still at about 11%, as you can see from this chart by John Williams over at Shadow Stats. Now, how do we as soldiers of finance deal with this? Well, look, again, inflation is the erosion of the value of your money because you need to bring more of, in this case, dollars to the table in order to purchase the same amount of stuff. You feel it at the grocery store. You know all about it. So we need to preserve the value of our wealth. How do we do that? Well, we need to convert some of it out of dollars into things that are appreciating faster than inflation. It's a very simple prospect. Now, what you need to think about is your personal financial situation and how that looks. Now, gold has been a way to preserve wealth for thousands of years. In fact, the central banks still understand that. They're buying gold at historic rates, right? That's one way to do it. Real estate. Now, real estate's tricky because it depends on where you buy it. It depends on its utility. All right. For example, you can buy a rental property in Baltimore City or, San Francisco, for example. Two blue cities that are very anti-entrepreneur and have kind of a socialist kind of mindset when it comes to private property ownership. So you can rent in those areas, but do you want to? You can look throughout the country to, scout out areas with more favorable and balanced laws where that is concerned. Or you could just buy a property and put it to some different use, like solar panels. Okay, there are a lot of deals out there being made for that. Farming, either directly or through some sort of lease agreement. You can rent it out to non-people, okay, to non-humans, server farms, on and on and on. The list is pretty long. But real estate tends to appreciate over time depending on other factors like location. And it also offers, in many cases, an opportunity to make some income as well. Gold does not do that, all right? So where real estate typically is not going to appreciate as fast as inflation over time, the income piece of it could help you to balance that out. Also, look, there are configurations. Now, listen, I know I sound like a broken record on this, but guys, I swear by it. Well-managed companies that are out there, selling a tangible product or some service that people need that are publicly traded. A lot of these companies, if you go and look at their returns over the 5-year, they're blowing inflation out of the water. Okay, so you're definitely holding your value and then some. All right. Now, because we also talked about tax increases in addition to inflation and interest rate hikes, you want to seriously consider having those well-managed companies in some sort of vehicle that will protect you from future tax increases. So you're getting tax protection and you're getting the appreciation that is beating inflation. You can do that with a permanent life insurance policy. All right, we've talked about that ad nauseum here on the channel. So there are various ways. If you want more information about any of those ways, I don't sell gold, okay? I don't sell gold. I sell financial products, not gold, but I do recommend it. Depending, again, on your circumstance, you have to do the due diligence for your particular set of circumstances, okay? But that's where we are, guys. Inflation is probably going to be headed north, even if it just stays where it is, guys. Look, you go to the grocery store, you feel it every day. It's just me and my wife, but I feel for people with, 2.5 kids. What are they spending on groceries per week, right? We got to eat. All right, guys, I want you to check out this video. A major recession indicator is being flat out ignored by the banks and by the Fed. Now, they know that this is a harbinger, but again, they want to obscure this because they got to keep you spending. Watch this. Learn more. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.